Long time no see. Welcome back. Sorry it's been a while. Life's been, it's been good. It's been good. I've just been struggling trying to figure out what I actually want to talk about. I actually work from home. I love it, but I've decided that I need some new hobbies. One of those being gardening. It's not going so well at the moment.
Everything is dead.
So that, I need to have an alternative. If you didn't know, we talk about all things creepy and kooky and spooky and strange, and because that's what makes me happy. At a time that is so crazy and sad, I need something to keep me going.
Let's get started.
Today, I wanted to talk about horror classics. Where do I start if I'm starting from the beginning? So I thought I'd cover it for you guys. 5 movies that I think everyone should watch as a horror fan. The first movie we're gonna discuss today is Alien. Alien came out in 1979 and was directed by Ridley Scott. After the space merchant vessel, Nostromo, receives an unknown transmission as a distress call, one of the crew is attacked by a mysterious life form, and they soon realize that its life cycle has merely begun. I'm sure at some point in your life you have come across some piece of marketing material or have seen bits and pieces of the sequels. These movies I feel like are always on the Sci-Fi Channel. Basically, this whole crew is woken up from their hypersleep in the middle of space to go investigate this distress call from a nearby planet. Once they all go to investigate, this mysterious life form latches on to a crew member's face. It all goes to hell from there. The really cool thing about this movie is that there's no clear-cut protagonist for about an hour. You really don't know who the main character is going to be until Ripley takes the stage, baby. She is a badass. She is my favorite final girl for a reason. If you don't know what a final girl is, it's basically the last character standing at the end of a horror movie. Ripley is one of the very few who don't play into the horror tropes. She's a badass, she has sex, she's not stupid, she knows what she's doing, and that's a reason why I love this movie so much. This movie is also terrifying because it is considered confined. So like I said, they're floating in space on this small spaceship. A cool way that Scott played into this was that he actually had the walls of the set move forward an inch every day during filming so that the actors would actually feel like the walls were getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And that really played into their genuine reactions and their performances, and it's just like, number 2. What do you think it is? Halloween. I know Halloween is on absolutely everybody's list. John Carpenter, the director of this movie, is a legend for multiple and extremely valid reasons. If you have not seen Halloween, what the hell are you doing? What are you doing, you silly goose? Halloween came out in 1978 and was directed by John Carpenter. 15 years after murdering his sister on Halloween night in 1963, Michael Myers escapes from a mental hospital and returns to the small town of Haddonfield, Illinois to kill again. This film was only made for $300,000, which even in the 70s was not a lot of money. However, this movie is one of the most profitable movies of all time. It's timeless, but why has it remained timeless? Few factors, I think. Jamie Lee Curtis being one of them.
Activia tastes great.
Activia! This was actually one of her first roles, and it's funny because she hates horror movies. Even though she doesn't like them, she is one of the most iconic figures in the horror industry. Jamie Lee Curtis is Laurie, who plays this babysitter who winds up connecting herself to Michael throughout his time when he comes back to Haddonfield. It's basically like a cat and mouse game the entire time. Michael is trying to find Laurie, but all of her friends are getting in the way. And that's the body count that Michael racks up during the whole movie. Very similar to Alien, Carpenter really utilized the foreground and the background in this movie. You're not gonna see a intense pop-up of Michael's mask. He's gonna be in a closet behind you, maybe in a mirror, or maybe like popping out behind a bush. They used this ominous storytelling to their advantage rather than blood and violence and gore. If you've seen Halloween, you will know that it's not a gory movie. It's not a very violent movie. Yes, there's kills in it, but compared to some of the other slashers, it's extremely, extremely tame. John Carpenter famously scored this movie and a lot of his other movies, and he actually can't write a music note. He does it all by ear, and he scored this movie in about 4 days, which is incredibly impressive. Even filming the movie, it only took 20 days. So this really was something crazy with a low budget that was pulled together in this short time frame. And that film having the cultural impact that it does today just blows my mind. If you haven't seen it, please go watch it. Let me know what you think. It's one of my favorites of all time. Number 3, we're gonna talk about The Shining by Stanley Kubrick. The Shining came out in 1980 and is about a family that heads to an isolated hotel for the winter, where a sinister presence influences the father into violence, while his psychic son sees horrific forebodings from past and future. The Shining is just another movie that I'm sure every single one of you has heard about. If you didn't know, The Shining is based off of Stephen King's book, The Shining. It is well known that King does not like this adaptation of his book at all. He thinks it's pretentious and that Kubrick went in a different direction than where King wanted to take this. And while I appreciate Stephen King and love his work, I do think he needs to pack it on up with that one because this movie is a masterpiece. The story of Jack and Wendy and their son Danny is just chilling. You slowly watch this man lose his mind step by step by step.
I said, I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna bash your brains in.
Kubrick is a masterful storyteller. The way that he pieces together little aspects of the film are really intriguing. It's one of those films that you want to watch over and over again because you can pick up on something new every single time. Obviously, Jack Nicholson puts on one of the greatest performances of all time with the portrayal of Jack Torrance. When people first watched Nicholson's performance in this movie, they thought he had just blown it. They hated it. They didn't understand how dedicated Nicholson was to this role. So many important pieces of pop culture have come from this movie. The bloody elevator, the twins standing in the hallway, even Danny riding his big wheel on that iconic patterned carpet have just been seen over and over and over again. And the small details that were put into this, I read somewhere that Kubrick's assistant actually spent months typing up pages that said all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy that Shelley finds towards the end of the film. I just can't even fathom that. If you want to dive a little deeper into Kubrick's Shining, there's a documentary called Room 237. It's actually on Shudder, which is a horror exclusive streaming service. I really recommend you check it out. It explores all of the fan theories that have been popping up over the last 30 years on hidden meanings that they think Kubrick included in the film. Some of them get really crazy and they think it's Kubrick's apology for being part of faking the moon landing. If you're a fan of this film, you should definitely check it out, but watch it from an aspect of this is the influence that this movie has had on people and not so much this is true. Does that make sense? Number 4. Is it really a horror icons list if we don't talk about The Exorcist? Of course, The Exorcist. We have to talk about The Exorcist.
Take a shot every time I say Exorcist.
The Exorcist came out in 1973. It was directed by William Friedkin. When a 12-year-old girl is possessed by a mysterious entity, her mother seeks the help of 2 priests to save her. Now, just in my opinion, this is all me, I am not a massive fan of the Exorcist movie. I agree with and think it is incredibly important to recognize the significance this movie has for the horror genre in its entirety. When this movie premiered, the mainstream audience in the 70s had no clue what just hit them. That's because some of the content is really shocking and even is shocking if it were portrayed on film today. This film is based off of a book called The Exorcist that came out in 71. It was written by William Blatty, and he also wrote the screenplay for this movie. So him and the director Friedkin kind of went hand in hand on this. Basically, this little girl, Reagan, gets possessed by this demon that comes to be known as Pazuzu. Her mother goes to the ends of the earth trying to figure out what the hell is wrong with Reagan. And it takes getting some professional religious input. All of these things combined that leads up to the exorcism that is performed on Reagan in the very end. The initial marketing wasn't the best. They weren't so happy with it, but when opening day came, they had lines wrapped around the building. It was madness. And once everyone got into the theater, the movie started playing, people passed out, people threw up, people suffered miscarriages and heart attacks. It was madness. And that's why The Exorcist is so iconic to this day, is because it pulled this reaction out of a generation of people, and it ruined some of their lives. If you haven't seen the movie in itself, you gotta watch it. You just gotta do it. And we've done it. We've made it to the end. We've talked about 4 movies. Let's talk about one more, and I saved the very best for last. Number 5 is John Carpenter's The Thing. This movie is probably my favorite horror movie. You know, not even horror movie. Favorite movie of all time.
That's a bold statement.
It strikes all of the boxes for absolutely any single thing that you could think of. In my opinion, there was virtually nothing wrong with this movie at all. The Thing came out in 1982 and was directed again by John Carpenter. A research team in Antarctica is hunted by a shape-shifting alien that assumes the appearance of its victim. The story is based around this unknown creature that infiltrates the body of any living organism and can imitate that living thing perfectly after it mutates. The reason why I love this movie so much is because you never know who is currently the Thing. You have no idea. When they were filming this movie, the actors themselves even didn't know that they were playing the Thing at the time. Carpenter specifically left it out of the script so that they gave a more natural performance. They weren't trying to be something that they weren't, because they had no idea that they were that thing. This team of researchers are stuck in this teeny facility in Antarctica. It's freezing. It's the dead of winter. There's a snowstorm outside. It's a contained horror that pays off in every aspect possible. Carpenter utilizes his expertise in editing and timing to really drive this film home. This movie is actually a remake of another movie that came out in 1951 called The Thing from Another World, which was actually based on a book called Who Goes There? The prosthetics and the makeup and the special effects are horrifying. They used real animal organs and blood. This was another movie that was denounced when it was released. Carpenter was not happy with the poster of this movie. He specifically wanted to not give this entity a body. He specifically played up the part of you not knowing who the Thing is, because that's what made it so scary. He was pissed because he's like, you're giving a body to something that is bodiless. There is a remake that has come out in the past few years, and it is actually pretty good. However, nothing can hold a candle to the original. So if you watch any movie on this list, please watch John Carpenter's The Thing. Those are 5 horror movies that I believe everybody should watch, should be familiar with. Learn a little bit more about why they're so respected in the horror community. It will really just intensify your love for film and the genre in itself. Thanks for watching, you guys. As always, I appreciate it. Thanks to everyone who gets excited for these and shows me support and love. I love all of you. Thank you for pushing me to do something that I would have never done without you. So until next time, my friends, stay creepy.